So here's a question that keeps successful people up at night. Why do I keep doing the thing that I know I shouldn't do? You're intelligent, you're self-aware, you've read the books, you've done the seminars, you've hired the coaches, and you know what to do. But when the pressure hits, when the stakes are high, and when it really matters, you default to patterns you hate, patterns you swore you'd break years ago. This isn't a discipline problem, it's not a character flaw, and it's definitely not because you haven't tried hard enough. You're being controlled by a code installed sometime before you were 10 years old that's running in the background with every decision you make. Let me show you how it works. In the 1990s, Jeep was drowning in a very competitive SUV market. They had a great product, but sales were struggling. So they hired an anthropologist, Clotaire Raphael. He's a culture anthropologist to figure out why. Raphael didn't ask people what they thought about Jeeps. He went deeper. He asked them to access their earliest memories of Jeeps, specifically the Jeep Wrangler. And what came up again and again was this: open range, freedom, the American West, a vehicle that can go where no other vehicle can go. The code for Jeep wasn't reliable transportation, it was horse. So when Jeep redesigned their advertising around this code, tapping into the primal imprint of freedom and frontier, sales skyrocketed, not because the product changed, but because they aligned with the code already running in people's minds. Let me share another story with you. In Japan in the 1970s, a deeply tea-drinking culture, Nestle wanted to sell coffee, and they failed miserably for years. Then they got smart. They stopped trying to sell coffee to adults. Instead, they created desserts that tasted like coffee for children. Why? Because Raphael understood something critical. The code gets installed early, and once it's in, it's almost impossible to override. Nestle was playing the long game. They were imprinting the flavor of coffee at ages 3, 4, 5, 6, and 20 years later, when these kids became adults, Japan was consuming 500 million pounds of coffee every year. They didn't change minds, they changed code. So what does all this mean to you? Well, here's the question. What kind of code is running your life? Robert Wright said it perfectly when he said, "We are all puppets, and our best hope for even partial liberation is to decipher the logic of the puppeteer." The puppeteer isn't some external force. It's the code installed between the ages of 0 and 8 to 10, before your prefrontal cortex was even online, before you had language for what was happening to you, before you could consent to what was being programmed. And here's the brutal truth. That code may still be running. It's why you micromanage when you know you should delegate. It's why you avoid conflict, even when confrontation would solve the problem. It's why you say yes when you mean no. It's why you can diagnose everyone else's dysfunction, but you can't fix your own. You think you're executing based on logic, based on experience, and intentional choice. But under pressure, under stress, when your nervous system gets activated, the code takes over. And there are 3 codes. So in my research, I discovered 3 parenting styles which convert to 3 codes that get installed based on your early environment. The first one is the Authoritarian Code. It means worth equals performance. If you grew up in an environment where love and approval were conditional, where you had to earn through performance or compliance or meeting expectations of others, you installed the authoritarian operating system. The code, your worth is determined by your performance. And here's what it looks like now. You're compulsively people-pleasing. You can't say no without crushing guilt. You're constantly vigilant about everyone else's needs while yours go unmet. You're exhausted from overfunctioning and resentment builds, but you never express it. Your sense of worth rises and falls based on others' approval. Everyone sees you as reliable, as responsible, the one who always delivers. That's your identity. And you're dying inside because you can't stop performing. You weren't designed for thriving. You were designed for surviving in an environment where love was earned, not given. The second code is permissive, the Permissive Code. Your identity equals recognition. If you grew up in an environment where attention and validation came through achievement, being special, or being impressive, you installed the permissive operating system. The code, your identity is determined by others' recognition. Here's what it looks like now. You're addicted to achievement. You have a constant need for external validation. You strategically manage your visibility and impression. You can't be ordinary without compensating for it. You have an identity crisis when you're not being seen or recognized. You shapeshift to manage whatever gets applauded. Everyone sees you as impressive, accomplished, successful, and you're hollow on the inside because you don't know who you are when no one's watching. You weren't designed for authenticity. You were designed for surviving an environment where worth came through being special. The third code is the inconsistent code, which means safety equals control. If you grew up in an environment where the rules kept changing, where stability was absent, where you couldn't predict what would trigger safety or danger, you installed the inconsistent operating system. This code is safety requires total control. Here's what it looks like now. You're hypervigilant about environments and people. You strategically shapeshift to manage context. You can't commit to anything without strategies. You're constantly scanning for danger or opportunity. You keep relationships at a distance. You start strong, but you rarely finish because finishing requires a vulnerability that you can't afford. Everyone sees you as adaptive, strategic, brilliant at reading rooms, and you're alone inside because you can't let anyone truly know who you are. You weren't designed for intimacy or commitment. You were designed for surviving in a where predictability didn't exist. So which code are you running? Here's why you can't trust try harder. Your code is stored in the limbic system, the emotional, survival-oriented part of your brain. It's fast, it's automatic, it's designed to keep you alive. Your adult intentions? Well, those live in the prefrontal cortex. It's slow, it's logical, and it requires effort, willpower. But when you're stressed or tired or triggered, the code always wins. Not because you're weak, because of neuroscience. You can't override a 7-year-old operating system with a 45-year-old productivity hack. That's not how the brain works. So what do? Well, you don't fight the code, you rewrite the code. That's what FutureSelf architecture is. It's not another framework for goal setting or time management. It's the process of identifying the obsolete code running your life, deactivating it, and installing a new operating system designed for who you're becoming, not who you were at 6 years old. I do this work with executive CFPs earning $500,000 a year who can't delegate, vice presidents stuck in paralysis analysis, CEOs who sabotage at every turn. The pattern is always the same: high intelligence, low execution. Not because they don't know better, but because the code won't let. If you're watching this and thinking, well, that's me, good. Awareness is the first step. Step 2 is downloading a free resource. You can do that on my website at www.creedbranson.com/resources. And you can understand the knowing, doing gap and what's required to change it. No email required, no catch, just the framework. But here's the truth. You can keep trying to outwork your code, or you can rewrite it. The choice is yours. So comment code below if this resonates with you. Subscribe for the upgrade. And if you know someone stuck in the same loop, share this with them. Let's rewrite the script, and thank you for tuning in.